This is the Good Government Podcast with Aaron Slutkin and Michael Hoffpower.
It has been frequently remarked that it seems to have been reserved to the people of this country, by their good conduct and example, to decide the important question, whether societies of men are really capable or not of establishing good government from reflection and choice, or whether they are forever destined to depend for their political constitutions on accident and force.
Can we establish good government from reflection and choice? Notice I said we. For us to do it as free human beings, wherein, as a matter of justice, government must be derived from the consent of the governed, can we actually do this? Can we act only from reflection and choice? I'm really leaning into the or in this sentence. Establishing good government from reflection and choice, or whether they are forever destined to depend for their political constitutions on accident and force. Mm-hmm. Is that even possible? Who says that's possible? Yeah. And if we dwell on reflection and choice, one column, accident and force in the other column, why do these matter? Why are these the categories?
To add something to your question, let's say that the people of the state of New York do vote to ratify this Constitution, or maybe there's another historical alternative, the one that actually happened. The Constitution is ratified before the people of the state of New York ratify it. We get to that 9 out of 13 number. If that happens, is the question settled? Have we now decided once and for all that people are capable of establishing good government by reflection and choice and not accident and force? What about reflection and choice and accident and force? I read that as a question about founding. Can we come together at this moment and found a good political regime? Or like Hamilton and Madison's English forebears, are we going to have to depend on an accident in history and historical development of the English Constitution?
That's right. And I know a lot of people think about this way for good reason, that the accident and force is pointing to the assemblage of laws that is England. But we can also look at human history. I mean, you know this, especially as a history teacher. Doesn't that seem to be the way it just happened? We fell into it and there was a strong person. And then the flood and came and wiped out our village. So we know that accident and force happens. But, I don't want to jump ahead to paragraph 2. So let me stop there. We have a hard or here. Is this possible? Yeah. Reflecting on how we ought to live and then choosing to live that way versus being tossed about by the winds of fortune and intimidated, put into a state of absolute fear by some strong people with sharp, pointy objects who are just going to murder us all if we don't get in line. That seems to be the option. The fully human, where one is free to deliberate and choose, or the all too well-known human experience of being subject to chance or fortune and also raw compulsion and violence. So both are a part of the human experience. Can we just go to the one that is actually just and preferable? And fortune may smile on us. I want to say accident, by the way. Accident need not be just being struck by lightning and having a piano fall on your head. Accident could be good luck, like fortune. 13 times 2 from the prince, you know this? It could go either which way. But what's wrong with depending on accident for government? Then it's just a random assemblage of laws, and it's not a product of deliberation and choice, and it could easily go another direction. Oh, thank goodness we have this common law that allows the subject to have certain rights. But those rights are based in what? History, and also accident, not principle, not a rational principle that is accessible or graspable through all human beings' encounter with the world, nature, reality. So even if accident is our friend, it is not a reliable friend. It's a fair weather friend. I need a steady friend who's a rock. I need my government rooted in principles that I can talk to other people about. They can talk with me about them. We can understand why they're good, and we can choose to live according to them. build a foundation that can weather these storms of accident and force.
And to follow you there, we can find Jefferson and Washington, maybe Hamilton, Madison, writing, and thank God we were born in this age. Thank God we get to deliberate on a new government. And I'm paraphrasing here, but when the rights of man were better understood than ever, when monkish superstition is falling off, right? That's an accident. We have to think that, the progress of the science and the progress of reason, maybe that's not an accident, but the fact that they are able to deliberate at this moment surely is, right? If we have a revolution and then experience with the inefficient articles, which as much as we can bemoan has provided us, with a little bit of human cleverness and much boldness to be able to deliberate on a new constitution. It takes, right? It takes a little bit of boldness and backhandedness by Madison to be able to bring the Virginia plan and have someone else introduce it. If the Articles of Confederation were going to be replaced, it was supposed to happen in the Congress of the United States and not at a special convention in Philadelphia. Nevertheless, we have reached this moment through accident and choice, maybe not through accident and force. I think we have to realize these categories, if we can put them in columns and understand them that way, but politics happens because of all four of these things.
Great point you're making. And you can see this, right? Necessity exists. The call or invitation to deliberate, the experience of the insufficiency of the previous decisions, all of that is thrust upon us. It's just the same as, for instance, let's go with the virtue of courage. Being in the situation where you may be courageous or cowardly is the situation. Now, you might be able to craft that situation, but let's leave that aside. I'm thinking in a Machiavellian manner here to stick with him, but let's leave that aside and just say, well, no, here I am right now, and the bully's in front of us, and I'm behaving courageously and defending my friend or my sister or myself. I didn't put myself there, but I behaved according to maybe not simply habit, but maybe even deliberation and choice. I'm going to do something about this, you say to yourself. So you're totally right. And you've already anticipated where we're headed in Fed 1 with this great insight. Even when we are deliberating and choosing, we are still subject to accident because most likely we found ourselves in a situation that is not of our own contrivance. You're exactly right. And this is where people start using language like blessed when it comes down to having these human beings at this time, absolutely remarkable, intelligent human beings to own up to this crisis or seize this day. It's the beginning of the Big Lebowski. Sometime there's a man who's fitting for his time. And you start questioning what that is and start deifying things or sanctifying them or mythologizing them. And you say, wait a minute, should I capitalize the F when I write founding fathers? That's this sort of stuff. It's a wonderful point. I appreciate you making it. This opening paragraph, we really should pay attention to it as much as possible. This is the end of paragraph 1 of Federalist 1. If there be any truth in the remark, the crisis at which we are arrived may with propriety be regarded as the period when that decision is to be made, and a wrong election of the part we shall act may, in this view, deserve to be considered as the general misfortune of mankind, if there be any truth in the remark. So there's a qualification. And then we move to pretty much what most people would pay attention to here, the general misfortune of mankind. If we do not get this right, a wrong election on our part will be to the general misfortune of mankind. So it's not merely then about this union, these states, and this empire. It's about all humankind. That's really, is this guy just prideful and hubristic? Is this fake or is this real? Is self-government possible? And the way that that's taking place here is establishing good government on purpose. That is, from reflection and choice. Possible. And if it's not possible, then that is a misfortune that will befall all human beings, who it seems will just be deserted to the realm of accident and force. We'll just be marooned. We'll be a little different from beasts, not human, in that most glorified way of reflecting and choosing. I can argue as to why it is that this statement, golly, this guy is full of himself and writing this way. And then he can say, well, I think there's something here.
Yeah.
I think what's happening is very important. And this is a lovely way to return to your point about time, which I really appreciate. This is still a question for us. It's still a question. Yeah.
He says that the crisis at which we are arrived may be regarded as that is pointing to, I think, accident and force mixed with choice, right? That we call the convention, but we were here because of a crisis of due to the inefficacy of the subsisting federal government. But again, it's worth asking, why now? What was it about that moment? Is there something?
They couldn't pay their bills. In no small part. I mean, you can look at some of the letters from Washington on this.
Yeah.
There were a handful of letters. Madison's exposition on the vices of the Articles of Confederation is fantastic on this. And he just lays it out. And at the end, he's like, look, this thing cannot do its job. This government is too weak. We're going to become overrun with action and just fall apart.
But I mean more on the grand historical stage, right? That Publius is suggesting, is claiming that Americans, it may be said, to be playing. Why wouldn't we think that, okay, we can get this wrong now, and then try again? Another generation could try again in the to throw out some sort of random decades in the 1860s or in the 1930s, right? The 2020s. Is it just rhetoric, I guess?
Earlier, you and I were discussing that when one deliberates and chooses, a lot of times one does so because necessity forces it upon you. And am I missing what you're saying? But aren't they at a crisis where the government under which they are united, the Articles of Confederation, is proving inadequate to keep them safe?
Yeah.
It seems that's the case, that there are divisions popping up. Faction is the spark of civil war. There's just going to be all this internecine warfare. I think there was a real problem. I mean, the Articles, bless them, but man, there sure were some challenges there. No mere temporizing expedient. It couldn't be, as I've heard it said, mere nip and tuck. No mere outpatient surgery was sufficient to remedy this problem. So that shows that we're at a crisis. And then furthermore, it seems as if the golden opportunity, that golden hour of being able to found according to these principles is as limited as the golden hour of any day. Well, the cost, at least, of if it were to pop up again in 19 whatever, is going to be a tremendous amount of blood.
So I guess that's the question that I'm asking. Right, taking Publius's claim seriously, this is humankind's last shot. That if a wrong election is made by Americans, then we will have forever decided that we are not capable of establishing good government by reflection and choice. I guess it's not quite clear to me from that paragraph why now, and that's speaking beyond the historic. I think it is. I think it's speaking beyond American politics at that moment, right? Because then you would have to say, well, why can't the British be making this choice right now? Why can't the French make this choice in a number of years when after they stormed the Bastille? Why is it that America at this moment is able to make this decision? And then again, if we make the wrong election, if New York doesn't ratify or the states don't ratify, it's over.
Let me just speak about it this way. Here, I'll use an analogy from a movie from The Wolf of Wall Street. The sell me this pen line from The Wolf of Wall Street. You create demand. You take the pen and you say, hey, write down your name for me real quick. And the person says, I need a pen. And then you've created demand for the pen to sell to the person. Well, rhetorically, Publius is by all means creating a sense of urgency. It's a call to attention. This is very important. And then what I think is happening is an elevation. This might be primarily, actually. There's an elevation. There is, in my opinion, something of American exceptionalism here. To use the language again, this is the golden hour. The iron is hot. Strike it. So why now? I want to return to this way of thinking about it. It might be actually a conceit of ours, of yours, Aaron, of mine. It's a conceit maybe of ours that we could just do this again if we colonize Mars or buy an island or build an island. Like, we could just do this. It's not so clear to me. And then in addition, I want to repeat this line. It's going to take some blood to do that. And there's already been a tremendous amount of blood shed. So as the water is receding and the spirit of liberty pervades the country, as we're led to believe, that's the American exceptionalism, this wonderful fortune to be at this crossroads. This crisis now, we must understand, sorry to say Machiavelli for the third time, as an opportunity. There you go. And I would say, finally, let me add one more thing. The conditional of the if there be any truth in the remark, I think is calling into question the or that we paid so much attention to with reflection and choice or accident and force. What you and I have established is that or is by all means a fiction.
Yeah.
Because it's not a true remark. It seems to me that all of this will have to be, as everyone's life is, mixture of accident, some force, as you've pointed out, and some deliberation and some choice. But that doesn't change the fact that if we don't get this right, human beings are going to have to wonder if it's possible.
And just to keep going there, it's worth noting that third sentence beginning with "it has been frequently remarked." It has been frequently remarked that it seems to have been reserved to the people of this country. And then later, if there be any truth in the remark, right? We should not take this sentence as Publius's declaration that it's here and now, and that's it. And I think that calls into question something we want to continue discussing the first Federalist paper, is that this paper is very much about rhetoric and about the public debate and about discourse.
That's totally right.
Yeah.
Something of Publius's rhetoric is revealed to us when we scrutinize the passage. If we were just reading this as we were walking to work in the morning, we might not realize how the issue is being framed, intentionally being framed. Rhetoric is not a dirty word. It can be used well or poorly for noble or nefarious ends. It's up to the reader of the book to decide whether or not that's what's going on here, if she even notices that there's a distinct rhetoric here. Well, why is rhetoric necessary? Rhetoric is here as lubricant. It's a tool of persuasion that's needed to help us deliberate in a certain way so we can choose in a certain way.
Yeah.
Hence, rhetoric can be used for noble or nefarious ends. I guess what? You're special. You get to determine something of the fate of mankind.
Yeah.
Thanks. I feel great. I'm going to listen to you. So you open with a little bit of very serious, heavy stuff, but it's also empowering.
Yeah.
And I like this. I'm going to listen.
We've just gone through the first paragraph. We've realized that we need to think about the rhetorical nature of this work, and we've discussed this question of reflection and choice. I wonder if we should pause here and then pick up in another episode about the remainder of this paper. Because right now what we've just done is we've gone through the most famous part. What Fed 1 is known for is this, and then as well at the end of the paper, the discussion of the outline of the work that'll continue.
So if I may, let me offer a few sentences that are my takeaway,
Please,
from the work that we've done today. Publius shows us here that you cannot form government only according to reflection and choice, as if we existed in a vacuum of pure reason.
Yeah.
We have to admit the role of accident and force. Any political science worth its salt does so. And in doing so, it meets accidents head on. It admits their place and it says, yes. And then what's this? This is something like what practical wisdom is. This is prudence. It's here. Now I'm going to choose well in light of it being here. It confronts necessities of action and it chooses. And it seems to me, therefore, that this opening section stresses to us, we who are going to ratify or not ratify this Constitution, the importance of our choosing well. You see this, I think, stressed in the difference between the opening sentence, you're called upon, versus that decision is to be made at the tail end of this paragraph. All of this means we are here, no matter if we choose to be here or not. No matter that we're here, perhaps by fortune, Are you just going to let fortune and force rule you, or are you going to deliberate and choose well? And that understanding of things, I think, is so vital for understanding Publius's political science. One last point on this.
Sure.
People might be self-interested. People might be ambitious and jealous of that which they love, that is their own. Can you admit this? And you say, well, not me. And I would say, okay, but what about that person who ripped you off at the store the other day? Oh yeah, that guy's the worst. Okay, so you admit that this is an aspect of human being. What are you going to do about it? So when you're building government, you're accepting and confronting head on, if I may use this language, the accident of you.
Yeah.
The material with which the statesman works. You can refine it and elevate it through civic education, but even to refine it and elevate it, you have to understand what it is in the first place. You have to understand the possibilities of the clay that's in front of you. And you have to contend also with the clay that's not going to be so pliant and shapeable, and build in safeguards and work that into your understanding of good government and a constitution that's capable of securing it. So I went beyond the first paragraph, but the germ of it's there, in my opinion.
And I think it implies one reason why, to talk about something that we referenced at the beginning, right? As educators, we have to choose our texts, right? And also as podcasters, we have to choose our text. Why this is worth reading? Because notice what you and I have not talked about once: who we're going to send to the Constitutional Convention. You and I have no business in ratifying this thing. We can talk about whether it's a good constitution or not, and the Federalist is going to influence our decision here, because, as you said, it is a very rich commentary or explanation on the Constitution. But that's not what we're in the game for right now, right? And your discussion just then of statesmanship, of human nature, of political science, I think reveals why we are choosing the Federalist to start.
I think also, if I can return to time as a theme, Publius was writing 3 to 4 of these things a week.
Right.
John Jay, who wrote a handful of the early single-digit papers and then 1 or 2 on the Senate. Hamilton and Madison, who then wrote the book, were writing 3 or 4 of these a week. Amazing people who understood the value of time and the necessity of striking while the iron is hot.
Speaking of time, right, I'm really excited for our next conversation about the remaining 8 paragraphs of this first Federalist paper.
Yeah,
so
sure.
At this rate, if we assume an average of 12 paragraphs for Fed paper, 12 times, 85?
Yes.
We can move on to something else by episode. I'm not sure I can count that high.
I look forward to celebrating your 45th birthday with you. Well, thanks, Aaron.
This has been the Good Government Podcast with Aaron Slutkin and Michael Hoffpower.